is really enforced through just this army of local neighborhood officials who manage basically just a few blocks, a few streets within cities in China. And before the pandemic, you might go talk to your neighborhood officials if you had a problem with the construction going up next door, if you had some sort of plumbing issue. But during the pandemic and during zero COVID, they have become empowered on a whole new level. They have essentially become some of the most feared officials in China, because if you get a call telling you that you need to quarantine at home, that's coming from your neighborhood officials. If you return from a business trip or a trip outside of the city where you live, very often you will get a call from your neighborhood officials saying, hey, we would like you to quarantine at home for a few days just in case. So they are really the human element keeping people in place.
So it sounds like, taken together, these two levels of control really amount to a pretty significant loss of personal freedoms.
Yes. And in addition to that, the economic toll after 3 years of this has really, really started to wear on people as well.
Right, like, it stands to reason that if you're locked down for months at a time, you can't go to work, right? Like, what's happening to people?
The economic effects of zero COVID have really affected people all across the socioeconomic spectrum. Zero COVID has been especially hard on small businesses, but we've also seen it affect white-collar workers, people who were very, very comfortable before the pandemic. We've seen giant tech companies doing layoffs. We've seen college graduates having a really, really hard time finding jobs. The youth unemployment rate is at 20%. That's a record high.
Hey, that's crazy. 20% youth unemployment in China?
Yes. But one thing we do know is that the government does not seem to be budging anytime soon on zero COVID. They held a press conference on Tuesday afternoon in which they basically said zero COVID is still correct, and Xi Jinping in particular has tied it so closely to his own leadership that it would be really hard for them to step back and say that this is no longer the way forward without somehow, at least implicitly, detracting from those previous statements and raising the question, well, were you wrong before then when you were saying that this is proof of China's superiority? And so Xi and the Chinese Communist Party have really sort of backed themselves into a corner because of how insistent they have been that zero COVID is the only way forward.
So, like, there's no way out of zero COVID without sacrificing something really important, either people's health or people's trust in his government.
There's definitely no easy way out of this situation. Either you stick to zero COVID and people continue to be extremely unhappy, people continue to lose faith in the government, as we've seen this past weekend, or you back off of it a little bit, but you risk that people lose faith in a different way and wonder why the government is no longer keeping them safe, or why it had been misleading them for so long about the direction it was taking the country.
Vivian, thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Vivian Wang covers China for the New York Times. This week, new protests flared up in southern China, where migrant workers and residents rebelled against a pandemic lockdown in an industrial district. Crowds of hundreds of protesters on the edge of Guangzhou clashed with riot police in hazmat suits. Some threw glass bottles at anti-riot officers and tore down barriers meant to lock down buildings.
The Daily is supported by Bitwarden, a password manager made for teams to securely store and share passwords and more with end-to-end encryption. Learn how to bring Bitwarden to work by visiting bitwarden.com/bringit. And by Fidelity Wealth Management, helping create plans for a client's full financial picture. Fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Get the story firsthand with The Daily, distributed by American Public Media.
The Daily is powered by the journalism of the New York Times. It is distributed by APM, American Public Media.
Oregon, Cascades and Siskiyous today with highs near 33 degrees. In Wairika, a chance of rain and snow this morning, then rain this afternoon, the high near 47. Mostly cloudy in Weena Mound, Shasta with a chance of snow and a high near 34. In Redding and Red Bluff, afternoon rain expected, the high near 50. In the Klamath Basin, a chance of snow, then snow mixed with rain, the high near 48 degrees. On the Northern California coast, afternoon showers with gusty winds and a high near 52. Rain expected in Roseburg and the Umpqua Basin, a steady temperature around 43 degrees. In the Rogue Valley, cloudy skies with rain and highs near 50. And Eugene and Springfield can expect rain, then showers, temperature falling to around 40 degrees by early afternoon. This is JPR.